What's up, Raptors fans? Welcome to the Warriors Report. I have a special guest with me today, JJ. You know who JJ is, but I'll let you introduce yourself, JJ. Go ahead.
Well, damn, you beat me to the first part, but what's up? It's JJ Buckets. Nice to be back on here.
Thank you for being here. So we're going to discuss the Goran Dragic situation. Obviously, there's been a lot of rumors surrounding him and how the Toronto Raptors are very likely to move him, but also that there's a lot of interest apparently around the league for Goran Dragic. First of all, I just want to get your thoughts before we jump into some of the teams who could potentially trade for Goran Dragic. What do you think of these rumors and this news that came out regarding Goran?
Honestly, at this point in the season, it's almost like a laughing matter, but I am just happy to ship him somewhere else and get any kind of return because let's be honest, that sign and trade hasn't really worked out that great for the Raptors. If I'm being, in my humble opinion, at least if I'm being completely honest, I like Precious is fine. Obviously, he's definitely a work in progress, but like he might be something down the line in the future. But Dragic in the return, where you would have hoped that he could have been a good role player off the bench for this team, and let's be honest, that's something that this team desperately needs. Dragic just has been a complete non-factor on this squad all season. It is painful. So with these rumors coming out that other teams are interested and a trade might get done, I am honestly just sitting here thinking, dear God, please get this man off this team to a team where he might actually play or get bought out or whatever the situation is. Just give us some pieces back. I want any kind of notable return. Like, please, somebody that'll actually play minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you do make some good points. And another thing to take into consideration is that there's also some news about a lot of teams looking to acquire him, as you mentioned, and they actually want to buy him out. So it probably would be a case where some teams would move players with contracts going into next season, and it frees up some cap space because there's not a lot of contenders this offseason that have salary cap to sign, obviously, really good players. But let's talk about Goran Dragic and which teams do you see trying to trade for Goran Dragic this trade deadline?
There's a couple of teams that come to mind. I mean, the easiest, and I mean easiest connection to make, and it's the connection that people have been making, I think, since the offseason, since he arrived here, the Dallas Mavericks, right? I mean, you have Luka Doncic there. Luka needs any kind of extra help he can get whatsoever because that roster, quite frankly, has not been that good for a long time now. And particularly one of the biggest needs on that roster has always been a secondary playmaker beside Luka. Obviously, you have Jalen Brunson, and that's fine. Jalen Brunson is a damn good player. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, but you need more than that. You need to have people that can take the pressure off Luka, especially come playoff time where you just see Luka's usage goes through the roof. And then you sit there and you wonder, well, why can't the Mavericks get out of the first round? Why can't they beat this and this team? Well, or even better yet, the people that talk about, oh, why is Luka so gassed in the fourth quarter? Have you seen the heavy lifting that he does in the first three? Luka needs all the secondary playmaking help he can get. Dragic would obviously be an easy fit. Obviously, you have the built-in rapport. They're from the same country. They played for the national team together. So that's just the easiest one, absolutely, to see happening. But another one that I could potentially maybe see formulating is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously, with the injury they had to Ricky Rubio, they've tried to fill that hole. I don't know if Rondo's that guy, but I believe there was a report that they were looking for a combo guard. So if they still are, and if they're interested in being relatively competitive this season, I mean, I don't think they're disillusioned with the fact that they're going to be contenders this year by any means, but if they want to kind of put themselves in an even better situation to get deeper into the playoffs, get all their guys extra experience in the playoffs, because obviously, much like the Raptors, they have a young core. I think Dragic could make a lot of sense for them, just a rotational piece that could really boost the bench, like he was supposed to in Toronto, but just somebody that can boost the bench for them. I could see him going to Cleveland as well, but I think Dallas is the main one. I'd say Cleveland for me is probably the sleeper one.
Yeah, no, Dallas makes a lot of sense. And there's also some talk online about them obviously wanting to re-sign guys like Jalen Brunson, and they're probably going to in the trade. We're not going to go into specifics about players, but if they were to move certain players that have contracts going into next season, it just gives the Dallas Mavericks a lot more room to work with this offseason. So Dallas, I could definitely see Cleveland is definitely one team I can see trading as well. Now I'm going to go with a couple of my teams that I see. One was one I mentioned a few videos ago, which was the Utah Jazz. Now it was quite ironic that this happened. Unfortunately, that did happen to Joe Ingles. We saw him deal with that knee injury. I don't know if it's ACL. I don't know what you call it, but he's out for the season. So
Yeah, I believe it was a torn ACL, if I'm not
torn ACL.
mistaken.
Yeah, there's too many ACLs, CLs. I don't know. There's too many injuries to keep track of. But yeah, he's up for the season. Obviously, the Jazz want to compete and make a deep playoff run. So I could definitely see them trying to acquire Goran Dragic. Now I know they have Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley as their starting 1-2 guards, and they have Jordan Clarkson off the bench. But I really do believe someone like a Goran Dragic could definitely help them in the playoffs, as you talked about, for the same reasons about Dallas Mavericks as well. As good as Donovan Mitchell is, and they definitely have some nice bench pieces, I think Goran would definitely help that team. And they could potentially look at swapping some players for someone like a Goran Dragic. I think that makes a lot of sense. Do you see the Utah Jazz being a good destination for Goran Dragic, or do you see them trying to pursue Goran during the trade deadline?
Utah could be an interesting one. Again, like I think more so than say the teams that I've mentioned, Utah, although I disagree with this personally, I'm sure the front office there doesn't. I think Utah sees themselves as a contender. Think Utah sees themselves as a team that is in the mix to win a title this season. So I think any moves that you can make that could get you one step closer to that is a move that you have to explore. And could Goran push them a little bit closer in terms of, somebody that's experienced? Obviously, we haven't seen anything of him this season, but somebody that could score the ball off the bench. Obviously, you mentioned they have Jordan Clarkson, but like with the loss of Joe Ingles, I think you'll take all the support that you can get right now. So I could see a case for Utah making that move. It would be interesting, I think, to see who kind of gets packaged to get sent back to Toronto in terms of the contracts and stuff like that. But like, I could see Utah as a destination.
Yeah, so I see definitely Utah being one of those teams. Obviously, you've mentioned Dallas being one of them as well in the Western Conference. But moving on to the Eastern Conference, this is not a team that a lot of people like to talk about when we talk about Goran Dragic. That's the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, I know Milwaukee Bucks is going to be hard to make this trade because they don't have a lot of guys outside of their top three guys that make a lot of money. So the difficult question will be how will they trade for Goran Dragic? But I think they can definitely trade for him. George Hill, as good as he is, he's not someone you can consistently rely on to get you points and assist and just facilitate. So I think Goran would be a nice piece there, considering they definitely need as much help as possible offensively, anyways. And Goran Dragic would be a piece there going to the Milwaukee Bucks. What are your thoughts on that?
My only concern with the Bucks situation there, obviously outside of the contracts, which you've already mentioned, is I genuinely don't know how much of a boost Dragic would be from George Hill, where I don't want to say it's a lateral move, but if it's a move where it only kind of takes them a slight notch above where they're at, I don't really see that team being one that's going to really surrender a lot of assets. I think they could just as easily wait for the buyout market and see what's available then. But you never know. You never know with these teams. Again, similarly to the Jazz, like you've mentioned, they're a contender, and frankly, the Bucks much more so than the Jazz, in my opinion, are in the mix to win the title again this year. Obviously, they're just coming off a championship, so at the end of the day, you're going to make the moves that are going to put you in the best position, to be holding the Larry O'Brien trophy at the end. I'm not 100% sure if Dragic is enough of an upgrade there, but could I see it happening? I wouldn't completely rule it out of possibility.
So wait, JJ, you're saying Goran Dragic is not an upgrade over George Hill offensively, or just overall?
I'm saying for the most part, I don't know how big of an upgrade he realistically is. Defensively, definitely not.
No.
um, let's just leave that there. Offensively, it's so hard with Goran. Like we haven't seen him all year for the most part, outside of like the handful of games that we saw him at the beginning of the year. So just my issue with Goran and just like his value and like trying to gauge it and like trying to gauge where he is as a player is just I don't know to an extent. Like I just really don't know because I haven't seen it all year. If a team like Milwaukee is in love with the idea of adding a Goran Dragic because they've seen that he can be a productive role player on a good team like he has been with the Heat, obviously. I mean, the Heat were in the NBA Finals just a few seasons ago. So if they still see Goran as that guy, Sure, like they could definitely make a move, and in that sense, they'll probably see him as an upgrade over George Hill. I question how big of an upgrade again, just because I don't know where Goran is at with his levels of play at this point.
So you're telling me the Milwaukee Bucks won't give us Chris Middleton for Goran Dragic or a Drew Holiday?
I don't know about that one. I'm gonna keep it real with you. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of that meme where it's just kind of it's the dude that's like the worst trade in history, where it's like, I give you Goran Dragic, you give me Chris Middleton.
No, you do make some good points. So I agree. I think it's with the Milwaukee Bucks. I think they feel like they're in a good position right now with their big three, obviously, and then they obviously have some decent bench pieces as well. I don't think, again, I think you're right on when you say I don't think they'll give up a lot of assets in terms of what the Raptors may be looking for a Goran Dragic as well. But I think a lot of that has to do with what other Eastern Conference teams do come the NBA trade deadline as well. We've seen that with the Raptors as well when they acquired Marcus Gasol. There's rumors about Marcus Gasol going to the Milwaukee Bucks, and definitely Raptors want to upgrade at that season. We know obviously we won the championship, but I think for contenders it depends on what their rival teams are doing as well. If the Brooklyn Nets or Miami Heat make some big moves during the NBA trade deadline, you bet the Milwaukee Bucks will definitely try to. Not saying necessarily Goran Dragic, but there's definitely other players who definitely like to target as well. But with that being said, let's move on from Milwaukee and my dark horse I have in the Eastern Conference, who I think could potentially trade for Goran Dragic again. Could, not necessarily will. Brooklyn Nets. Now, I know they have Patty Mills off the bench there as their point guard. They have Kyrie Irving, but not going to get too much into his vac status. But just in terms of obviously, depending on what team they play, he's obviously not able to play home games. He may not be able to even play in the road games at all, depending on what city. A lot of people have said the Raptors should play the Nets. We won't have Kyrie playing at all, but it depends.
It's true.
I still don't want to face KD and Harden in any series, but it all depends on what series they play in. So I think having someone like a Goran Dragic in a situation like that as an insurance would be big for the Brooklyn Nets. What do you see the Brooklyn Nets as being one of those teams potentially looking to acquire a Goran Dragic type of player?
I don't know about Goran Dragic. It's actually interesting that you bring up the Nets, because I could actually see the Nets more so of a team that pursues somebody like a Chris Boucher. And I'd honestly, if I'm I would have to take a look again at some of the contracts that the Nets have and whether or not they can match up money for, a Goran Dragic. But with the Nets, I can see where your head is at for sure, because boy, with all the rumors coming out about James Harden, you got to start feeling a little worried that this super team might not end up amounting in anything, right? Like first of all, you've had the injuries for all of them. Obviously, KD is injured now, and he's had multiple injuries while he's been there, including the one where he was recovering from, where he missed the entire season. I forget what it is right now. Torn Achilles, that's actually what it was. Where obviously after he left the Warriors, he had the torn Achilles to deal with. Obviously, Harden's had his own injury issues. Kyrie's had his own injury issues, and now Kyrie's healthy, but in and out of the lineup because because doesn't want to get vaccinated. And again, like you said, I'm not gonna touch that. This is not a political video. But yeah, just Harden, the rumors say at the very least, is getting a little impatient. You can tell Harden wants to win at this point in his career, and who can blame him? When Harden was at his best as an NBA player, he had to deal with quite possibly the greatest dynasty, or at least one of the greatest teams assembled in NBA history. I don't know why I'm saying quite possibly, definitely one of the greatest teams ever assembled, with the Warriors blocking him at the time. So now that he's a little bit older, obviously he's not what he used to be, but he's still a fine player. He wants to win. And you hear the rumors about Philadelphia. You hear that they're going to come knocking for James Harden. And let me tell you, by the way, Joel Embiid and James Harden, my God, does that sound like fun and scary duo. Right?
Sorry to cut you off. I really hope, as a Raptors fan, I really hope that doesn't happen. That's going to be a deadly combination. So
absolutely. Just imagine alone, just a pick and roll with James Harden, Joel Embiid. My God. And then obviously on top,
you got shooters.
And then on top of the space they're going to create for each other, that's on the table for James Harden right now, potentially, right? So if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you're probably a little uneasy about that situation because you've given up obviously so much to get these three guys here. And if it
Mhm.
amounts to nothing, you're kind of really setting yourself back.
Yeah.
And obviously at that point, who knows what's going to happen with Katie and Kyrie. So to tie this all back to where we originally started, could they make a move? Again, I would need to take a look at the contracts.
It's
I
Joe.
would,
Sorry, Jay, to cut you off for a second. Joe Harris is the only one that's making anywhere remotely close to Goran. Obviously, you got the big three there, but besides that, you got Joe Harris, who's making 17, 18 million. And
mhm,
besides him, everyone else is making like five, six, $4 million. So in that range. So
mhm. So in theory, like a deal can be worked out. It'll be interesting. Again, it's it's really Kyrie here that leaves a question mark on it because
Mhm.
if the whole Kyrie Irving situation wasn't a thing and he could play, I would say no chance in hell. Like they have Patty Mills, they have Kyrie Irving. Why do they need another scoring guard, right?
Yeah.
But with Kyrie's situation up in the air, and again, like you said, with certain series, you might not even have Kyrie Irving unless like you really want to exploit that loophole and just pay the fine every single like pay large fines to the city or the
Mhm.
state rather
Yeah.
for Kyrie. I don't know, like you could potentially use another scoring guard like a Goran in there.
Yeah.
I still think there's a reason that, you brought them up as your dark horse. I don't think that it's the likeliest situation,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't 100% rule it out.
Yeah. No, you definitely made some good points there. It depends on the whole Kyrie situation, James Harden as well, right? They go all in, all out? Is it championship or bust season? Because Kyrie, I believe, has a player option as well. So I mean, you never know with him. You know what? If he's not able to play home games, he might just say, "I'm going to go somewhere else." So we'll have to wait and see what the Nets do. We'll have to wait and see what the Raptors do with Goran Dragic. But it's going to be an exciting NBA trade deadline. Personally, I can't sleep at night. I'm just thinking about the next video and just updating my Twitter continuously, seeing if the Raptors are doing something or they're in the move. But it's going to be fun. JJ, I want to thank you for being here. Any last words before we end this video?
Yes, please trade Goran Dragic for bench pieces so our starters don't have to play 50 plus minutes in triple overtime games. Please get them some help. That poor starting unit, my God.
Yeah.
uh, and also, obviously, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for doing this, JJ. And if you guys are watching, make sure to leave your thoughts and comments leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And I'll leave JJ's channel's link in the comment section as well, guys. So make sure to check him out. He posts some awesome Raptors content as well. So make sure to subscribe to his channel. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. And that will be it for today's video, guys. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.